Hello, welcome to Tech Friday with Nicole, and today we're going to talk about Transaction Desk and pre-filled templates. When we get into the computer and we're writing an offer for somebody, we can get really frustrated if we don't have everything at our fingertips, no matter what we're doing on the computer for that matter. So when we rush, we get frustrated. If we get everything organized, our goal is to get on there and have everything go smooth and be very adept at what we're doing. So today it's going to be about how to create your own pre-filled templates in Transaction Desk. First, let's review some basic information for Transaction Desk. Accessing Transaction Desk can be done through the LVR homepage, or you can access Transaction Desk through a listing in Matrix, which is probably the optimal way to access it if you are writing an offer on a property, because it would be right at the top where the little row of icons are for that listing. You'll find the Transaction Desk listing icon. When you point to it, it will say Transaction Desk, and it looks like a letter E in a blue box. That'll take you to the dashboard. And if you look at the menu on the left, you'll see that at the very top there's a speedometer, and that is the icon for the dashboard. If you were to click on the hamburger, which is above that to the right of the silhouette of the wolf in the circle, that's Lone Wolf's icon, you'll see the hamburger, which is what we call the three lines. So if you were to click on the hamburger, you would open the menu names, and that would look like this. So we have the dashboard, transactions, signings, forms, documents, task, contacts, settings, help, and to log out. We also have widgets on this page, and widgets are just to make it easy for us to access different areas of Transaction Desk. These are customizable. We also have how-to videos in the upper right corner, and then we have Knowledge Center in the lower right corner. Let's talk about the widgets for a minute. If you were to go to the padlock at the top right, you can unlock the widgets and move them around, or delete or add more widgets. When it is unlocked, it's very hard to tell that it's unlocked, but if you look really close, there's a tiny little space between the top of the padlock and the bottom. And you're going to see options for the widgets in that top bar that goes across. It's going to be blue, gray, or green, the color of the widgets. And you can only add the green ones. And theoretically, it's because the blue is already on your page, or the gray might already be on our page, but maybe the blue is not an option. Whatever the reason is, you can only add the green ones. And it's only 6 of each type of widget are allowed at a time. You'll see a green corner at the bottom right of each widget. You can customize the size by dragging that green corner whichever direction you want. You can also point your mouse at the gray bar at the top of a widget, and you'll get the 4 arrow symbol. And when you have that, you left click and you can drag a widget wherever you would like it on this dashboard. So you can customize it, make it look comfortable for you. The more comfortable you make everything in your work area, the more you're going to enjoy it and get in and out quickly. You want to pay special attention to this circle with a question mark in it, because if you're like me, you're going to use it a lot. I call Transaction Desk quite a bit. And when you click on that circle, it'll give you the phone number and other support options, and actually even a link to guides. They are available 24/7. We pay for this in our dues. So I would certainly make use of it. Let's go over a recap of the resources real quick. Help and support are here. The videos are up in the upper right, and your Knowledge Center is in the bottom right. Now let's take a look at settings. When you go to settings, you're going to see a list of options, and I want you to click on Preferences. Preferences is where you want to start out at. You want to take the time to make sure that your preferences are filled out accurately, and you use the drop-down arrow to access the settings for those preferences. We can also access program settings from here. So you can set preferences with different operations, 4 different operations within Transaction Desk. For example, if we were to go to Program Settings and then go to Form Settings, you'll see that you could actually set the type of font, the color of the font, and the size of the font here. And you want to remember to hit the Update button when you're done. But if you're like me, you've had many times when you're in Transaction Desk and you are marking up a form, typing in information, and it looks too large or it looks too small, and we're always adjusting the size. Maybe we don't like that font. So here you can preset it for what is the one you use most often. You can still change it within the program, but this will make the default what you want it to be. Now let's go over to Transaction Templates from the Settings button again. And when you look at your transaction templates, you should have 3 templates by JD. That's for Jimmy Dague. And these correspond with our RSA list of forms that we need for each transaction. So if you use the templates, it will preload all those forms into your new transaction for you. You have the HSE buyer packet. You have an HSE buyer's brokerage packet for those that use the buyer's brokerage agreement. And you have an HSE listing packet. Ignore the checklist down there at the bottom. That is there by accident. I actually have to remove that. Checklists are shown somewhere else normally. So there's your template name. And if you were to go to the 3 dots at the end of the template name, we call that the snowman, you would be able to copy, edit, or delete templates you have created. If it is you can also hit the add button to create a template of your own. You cannot edit broker templates. So you can only edit templates you've created. But you can copy a broker template. And that's really the best way to make a template for yourself. Start with the broker template and then personalize it to what you want. That's a little easier than starting from scratch. So now if you were to click on one of the transaction templates, you would get information on that template. And you'll find if there's any checklists associated with that template, if there's any documents, what contacts are associated with that template, and what are the forms that are included in that template. And those will all be listed right down here in the Forms box. If you go back to Settings and click on the Checklist Manager, that is where you could actually create a checklist. At the time I went there, we had no checklists. I created them for you by clicking on the Add button, so you could create your own, but they are included already in the templates that say by JD. The checklist is included in there. And that checklist is the same as the RSA checklist. How I recommend using it is clicking on it when you've already added something to the transaction in RSA. You can tell in Transaction Desk that you've already added it. So what you need to still add and what you have already done will be available to you right in Transaction Desk. So let's go to our transactions, which is the house symbol. That'll take you to your list of your transactions. And when you get to your list of transactions, you're going to see that you can either sort it by date or by the name of the file. You can always go back to your dashboard by hitting the speedometer on the top of the left menu. If you wanted to add a new transaction, you would go to the Add button. Again, remember, you can do a transaction for a buyer right from MLS, because that way it'll import all the information for that listing for you. Here I'm in a transaction, and one of the things I like to do is I like to make a folder in the transaction and name it Certificates. And then everything that I have had signed, and this is in the Documents folder of the transaction, everything that I have had signed, I put the certificate for it in that folder. And that way it's not cluttering up my list of documents. Remember, come up with your own naming system. Real important. And when you're in the transaction, you're going to have two menus, one on your left and one on your right. The menu on the left will take you out of that transaction. It is for all of Transaction Desk, that menu. The menu on the right keeps you in that transaction. So for example, if I were to click on History on the right, it would show me everything I have done in this transaction. If I were to click on Forms on the right, it would show me the forms that are only linked to this transaction. But if I were clicked on Forms on the left, it would show me all of the forms I have access to in Transaction Desk. And again, here's a simple sample of what that History button looks like when you click on it. It's going to give you a list, naming a list of everything that you have done in there, and the date and the time that you did it, including sending emails from the program. So now, what I'd like you guys to do before we do your pre-filled templates is to go to your contacts on the left. So you would start with your menu on the left, click on Contacts, and we're going to check your broker information and your information. And we want you to have only one copy of yourself and your broker, and you want to make sure that that information is complete and correct. So when you open up your broker's contact information, the type should say just broker, not selling broker, not listing broker, just broker, because for every transaction that will change. The same thing with your agent profile. You want it for type, you want to just say agent, so that you would use this whether you're listing or selling. Get rid of any duplicates. If you use the main contact area correctly, you'll stop making duplicates and you'll never grab an incomplete contact. So we've reviewed some basics. So now this is how we're going to create our personalized pre-filled transaction template. I want you to go to Settings, which remember are the three gears. And from Settings, you're going to click on Transaction Templates. Select a template by JD, go to the three dots, and select Copy. You cannot edit a broker template, but you can copy it. A box will open for you to rename that template that you're copying. I would remove the word copy and I would put either your initials or your first name, whatever is going to remind you that's yours. Okay? Rename that. You have to hit update anytime you make a change. Now, it shows you some information for your new template. You want to look at the contacts and make sure your broker and yourself are on there. If they're not, you can hit the Add button to add yourself in there or your broker. You wouldn't add clients here because this is a template that you're going to use for different clients. You would only add the clients in once you are in the transaction. Okay. You can delete a contact from here. So if accidentally you got a client in here, you want to delete it from this because this is your main template that you're going to use and reuse. Okay, it's not linked to one client. So again, just yourself and your broker here. Now we're going to go to the forms area, which is lower down on the page. And you can click on the 3 dots at the end of the form that you want to personalize. And you're going to personalize all the forms that you can. There are some that you can't, like the buyer's notice of disclosure. I don't think there's anywhere for the agent's name. So select the form and let's see. You're going to go into the form. You're going to type in all of the generic information that would be true for each transaction. So in other words, your name, your license number, your office name, your office address, your broker's name, and your broker's license number. Phone numbers and emails stay the same for you guys as well. So you want to put those in there. After you've gone through all the forms and personalized them, you're done. The next time you start a transaction, you're going to assign a personal template to it, and everything should flow a little easier. So say I had just started a new transaction. My formula for naming is buyer's last name. Sometimes you have 2 buyers, so you might have 2 last names there, a / and the property address that they're buying or trying to buy. The template that I used here is NAH, Buyer's Brokerage Packet. My initials are NAH. I know that's my personalized template. And then I would have imported the MLS number as well. Let's go over some best practices for Transaction Desk. Take time to think about the best naming system for you. Organize folder and file names, help reduce stress. Add to your document's file name, fully executed or buyer signed, as needed. Consistency will make things organized and easy to find. When creating the transaction, use the wizard. It will autofill information for you into your forms. Input all the contacts to the main contact file on the left menu. When you're in a transaction, you use the Contacts tab on the right of the transaction to import from your main contact file. That way you don't keep making duplicates. When in a transaction, the menu on the left will take you out of the transaction, but the one on the right will access content within the transaction. When in a transaction, don't forget your history button in the right column to check past actions. That could be helpful when you're working on something and then you get a phone call and you get sidetracked and you have to go back in and figure out where you were. That can help remind you what you just did last. HSE templates now have a checklist included. You can access it from the menu on the right within a transaction. You can check off the items you have turned into RSA. And how you would do that is when you're in the checklist, you'll see a little hourglass to the right. If you click it, it turns into a flag, like a race flag, like you're done, you won. So you want to mark it, make it a flag when you've turned stuff into RSA, and that'll help you keep track of what you still need to turn into the office. It's good practice to keep your own files, as you may lose access to these files if you ever change brokerages. Okay? So you're going to have a copy of your files in Transaction Desk, a copy in RSA, and your own file on your own computer or Google Drive or whatever program you use to store documents. Thank you for coming. If you have any questions or any suggestions, please let me know. And remember that the Transaction Desk and Authentisign support number, I would put it in your phone, and it's 24/7. Okay? Have a wonderful day. Thank you.